The galaxy had many dangerous species, but humans were the only ones people feared, without fully understanding them. And when Princess Queen Alira of the Velmorian Empire was told she must marry a human to secure peace, a quiet fear settled deep in her heart, because every story she had ever heard described humans as cold, clever, and impossible to predict. Beings who could win wars without even raising their voices. And as the day of the humans' arrival came closer, the grand palace filled with tension. Guards stood more alert than usual, and even her most trusted advisors avoided speaking too much about what was coming, because no one truly knew what a human would do. And when the massive doors of the royal hall finally opened, the room fell completely silent as a single man walked in, dressed simply, with calm eyes and a steady expression, not showing any sign of fear or arrogance, which somehow made him even more unsettling. And as he stepped forward and bowed respectfully before her, Alira felt something she did not expect, because there was no threat in his actions. Yet she could sense a quiet power behind his presence, something controlled and dangerous, like a storm that had not yet begun. And in that moment, her fear did not disappear. It only grew deeper, because the human was nothing like the monster she imagined, and that made him far more frightening. In the days that followed, Princess Alira watched the human closely, expecting to see signs of cruelty or hidden anger. But Elias Varen behaved in a way that only confused her more, because he spoke with calm respect, listened carefully to everyone, and never tried to show power even when others challenged him. And this made the royal court uneasy, as if they were waiting for him to reveal his true nature. Yet he never did. And during council meetings, he remained quiet most of the time. But when he finally spoke, his ideas were clear, sharp, and impossible to ignore, solving problems that had troubled the empire for years, which made even the most experienced advisors fall silent. And Alira began to feel that his strength was not loud or obvious, but hidden and controlled, like something carefully held back. And one evening, unable to keep her thoughts inside, she asked him directly if the stories about humans were true, if they were really as ruthless as the galaxy believed. And Elias looked at her with steady eyes and gave a small, calm smile, before saying that humans only became dangerous when they had something worth protecting. And his answer was simple, but it carried a meaning so deep that it left her speechless, and for the first time, her fear slowly turned into curiosity. The fragile peace did not last long, because only weeks after the humans' arrival, a sudden warning spread across the Velmorian Empire as enemy fleets appeared near their outer borders, moving fast and without any signal. And panic quickly filled the royal palace as commanders rushed to prepare defenses, knowing their forces were not ready for a direct attack, while fear returned to Alira's heart, not of the enemy, but of what the human might do when pushed into a real conflict. And as chaos grew in the war room, Elias Varen stood calm among the noise, watching the reports with sharp focus before quietly asking for control of the defense strategy, which shocked everyone because no outsider had ever been trusted with such power. Yet there was no time to argue, and with hesitation, Alira allowed it. And what followed was something no one expected, because instead of sending their fleet into battle, Elias ordered a series of strange movements, pulling ships back, leaving certain paths open, and creating what looked like weaknesses in their defense, confusing the enemy into thinking victory would be easy. But as the invading fleet advanced, they suddenly found themselves trapped in carefully planned zones where their communication failed, their formations broke apart, and hidden Velmorian ships struck at the perfect moment, turning the attack into complete disorder. And within hours, the powerful enemy fleet was forced to retreat in fear, unable to understand what had just happened. And as silence returned, the court stared at Elias with new eyes, realizing that his calm nature was not weakness, but control. And for the first time, Alira understood that human ruthlessness was not about destruction, but about ending a threat before it could grow. After the battle, the palace became quiet again, but the silence felt different, filled with respect instead of fear. And Princess Alira found herself thinking about Elias more than ever, not as a stranger, but as a mystery she wanted to understand, because everything she had believed about humans now seemed incomplete. And as days passed, she began spending more time with him, watching how he treated people, how he listened without judgment, and how he remained calm even when others praised him for the victory, never showing pride or seeking attention, which made his strength feel even more real. And one evening, as they stood on a high balcony overlooking the glowing city, Alira finally asked him why humans were seen as so dangerous across the galaxy, and Elias took a quiet moment before answering, explaining that humans came from a world where survival was never easy, where every generation had to face conflict, loss, and change. And because of that, they learned to adapt, to think ahead, and to protect what mattered no matter the cost. And he admitted that humans could be kind, but when someone threatened their people, they would not hesitate to act with full force, not out of anger, but out of responsibility. And as Alira listened, she began to understand that human strength was not based on fear, but on balance, the ability to be both gentle and unstoppable at the same time. And for the first time, she felt safe standing beside him, realizing that the same qualities that made humans feared also made them the strongest allies anyone could hope for. The day of the royal union arrived, and the grand hall of the Velmorian Empire was more crowded than ever before, filled with leaders, envoys, and observers from across the galaxy, all waiting to witness the moment that once caused fear, but now carried a strange sense of curiosity, because the stories about humans had already begun to change after the recent victory. And as Princess Queen Alira walked through the long golden hall, her steps were steady, her mind clear, and her heart no longer weighed down by doubt, because she was no longer the same person who once feared the unknown. And when she reached the center, Elias Varin stood there, waiting, calm as always, his expression unchanged, yet his presence now felt familiar rather than threatening. And as the ceremony began, a sudden interruption broke the silence when a distant warning signal echoed through the palace, bringing news of another possible threat approaching their outer systems, causing panic to rise once again among the guests. But this time, Alira did not hesitate or look around in fear. Instead, she stepped forward with quiet strength, raising her voice just enough to command attention, and declared that the Empire would not fall into fear again, because they now stood with allies who understood how to face danger. And her words carried a new kind of power, one built on trust rather than uncertainty. And as she turned toward Elias, she did not see a ruthless human, but a partner who had already proven his loyalty without needing to say it, and without waiting for approval, she completed the vow, choosing him not because she was forced to, but because she believed in what he represented. And in that moment, the fear that once surrounded humanity began to break, replaced by something stronger, respect. And as the hall slowly filled with silence, followed by acceptance, it became clear that this union was not just a political agreement, but a turning point for the entire galaxy, because the truth had finally been seen. Humans were not defined by ruthlessness, but by their unshakable will to protect. And as Alira stood beside Elias, she knew her choice would shape the future, not through fear, but through understanding. And for the first time, the galaxy felt a little less divided.